to ask you some more general questions related to this. So let's talk about
Recording in progress.
Can you tell me something about how people feel when they receive a homemade gift and when they receive a shop-bought gift?
Well, I think as with everything, it depends on the person and the gift. When a grandchild makes something for their grandparents, like a bookmark or a clay pot that they've made at school, then obviously their grandparents will treasure it. For adults, I think it's a bit different. If people are going to give homemade gifts, then they need to be of really good quality.
Why do you say that?
Well, when children make...
Now, this is called cross-questioning. When you are not explaining your answers sufficiently, the examiner is going to be coming back at you and the person would ask an explanation. And you could see that she clearly asked, why do you say that, right? Because you're claiming something and it is also your responsibility that you clearly give reason for whatever idea that you're giving, okay? Sometimes cross-questioning may also happen where the question could be asked from your answer itself, okay? This was one of those questions.
Things, it's the thought that counts. But when it's adults making things, it has to look like the present is a proper present, rather than something they've made just because it's cheaper. Of course, the thought still counts, and in many ways, our time now is more important or precious than money. So if somebody has spent a lot of time making a gift, it will mean a lot. But if someone has made some chutneys or pickles or some other type of food, then it has to be edible and taste nice as well.
So what about shop-bought gifts?
Now, the question that the examiner asked had two parts. One was handmade gifts and the other one was shop-bought gifts. And you could see that she paid a lot of attention to the first part of the question, but she did not say anything about the shop-bought gift. And you could see that the examiner is quite cooperative and the person did not deduct the marks here. The person tried to bring the candidate back on track so the person can answer the question. So it is showing that the examiners are always going to be this cooperative with you only. They would always try to make sure that they are getting most of the English from you and the communication is clear enough, okay? Now, it is nowhere we can say that a bad thing at all, that the examiner just tried to bring you back to the question. It is not a bad thing, okay? Because you both are talking right now. So the communication has to be two-way, right?
Most gifts these days are shop-bought, and there isn't really anything wrong with that. What is important, I think, with a shop-bought gift is that the person buying the gift should spend some time thinking about what the other person would really appreciate. It's no good a husband going into a perfume shop and buying the first perfume he likes. He needs to see what perfume his wife is wearing. That shows his wife that he's paying her attention.
Now, this was an example that was given by the candidate. Okay, now example could be anything. You could see that she gave a little bit general example. She could even talk about herself that if my husband goes, right? She could even mention that because you are allowed to mention personal examples on third part of speaking. Personal examples can be there.
And do you think that children get more pleasure receiving gifts than adults do?
Yes and no. Obviously, children love receiving gifts, but children do generally get a lot of gifts. Children these days are spoiled and they get too many gifts.
Now, this candidate has received 9 band, right? She is, this is a 9 band speaking that you're saying. Now, notice one thing that I am not sure whether you've noticed or not. Let me show you, then we will discuss that.
Gifts. Children these days are spoiled and they get too many gifts. So the more gifts they get, the less they value them. Children these days, but children do generally, yes and no. Obviously, children love receiving gifts, but children do generally get a lot of.
Now, first she said children, and then again in the next sentence, she is saying children.
Gifts. Children these days.
This is the third time she is saying children, right? And this kind of repetition would not deduct your marks at all. Okay, yes, obviously referencing is important. And you could see that later on, she would replace children with they as well. However, if she has used children thrice, it would not mean that her lexical source would go drastically down. Okay, It's okay to repeat certain words even with that kind of proximity. Okay. Are we clear with that? The repetition, because you would be always having these questions only, repetition. What if I repeat a word? What would happen? She has received a band 9, even for this speaking, right? And she repeated that word thrice in 3 consecutive, you could say, sentences.
Are spoiled and they get too many gifts. So the more gifts they get, the less they value them. Adults, on the other hand, generally have the resources to buy things for themselves. So if they really want something, they can buy it. Of course, this then makes present buying for adults much more difficult. But of course, there are things that we like that we can't really afford, or we can afford them but can't justify their expense.
What sort of things are you thinking of?
Now, this is again cross questioning. She mentioned something, right? That justification of buying something expensive. Now, the examiner needs some example. When you say that, okay, we can't really justify certain expenses. Now, what kind of expenses those are? The examiner wants to know, and she's asking a question from your answer itself for more clarity.
For women, it might be perfume or a day at the spa or a new pair of party heels. For men, usually something to do with their hobbies or books or CDs.
Do you think that more people get more pleasure giving or receiving gifts?
This is a tricky one.
Why?
Well, I think most people get pleasure out of both. Of course, it depends. We may not get a lot of pleasure out of giving gifts to children who we know may not appreciate them. But if we have found the perfect gift for someone we love and we know it's going to make them happy, well, then this will really fill our hearts with joy. Similarly, if someone receives a gift of something that they don't really want, or they can sense that it has been bought out of haste, then this isn't really going to make them feel that good. But if it's something wonderful, then, well, of course, they're going to feel fantastic about it.
Let's move on to talk about the commercial aspects of giving.
Now, on the part third, there would be 2 parts. Okay, one part would be little different than the other part. Though they will be talking about the topics that would be interrelated, but there would be 2 parts about that. Now she is going to be talking about something else, but related to the same part only. You can hear it.
Fantastic about it.
Let's move on to talk about the commercial aspects of giving. How much do advertisements influence people when they buy gifts?
In my opinion, probably not too much. I mean, most adverts are for things like cars and household products, which aren't really gifts. Although a lot of young people like to be given new phones and other gadgets. So if a parent isn't sure which model to get, then they could be influenced by advertising.
And do you think that some festivals have become commercialized as a result of the emphasis on buying gifts?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes. In fact, I think it's much worse than that. It's not just the old festivals becoming commercialized, but so-called new ones being created just for the sake of present giving.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. Things like Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. These aren't Indian traditions, but
And you could see that whenever the examiner asks for more explanation, she's creating some scenarios using if, or she's giving some examples like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, right? Now she is giving some examples. So examples are always the best way to explain more on the answer that you're giving. Whatever content that you have given in your answer, examples are always going to be making your idea even stronger. So you can always add examples on the part third of speaking so that the explanation is there for your answer.
suddenly we find we have to buy a present for our spouse on Valentine's Day. And while it is nice to recognize how important our mothers are, surely it should be something we do every day, not just once a year when we buy her some chocolates.
Thank you very much, Saba. That is the end of the speaking test.
And now you can see you will be just coming back your home. Nothing else is going to be happening. And your result would be declared after 13 days of the test. And in case you're taking the pen and paper test, and in case you're taking the computer delivered test, your result would be released within 3 days on, 3 to 5 days. Okay. Now we have watched this video. We have discussed a lot of things yesterday as well. So far, are you guys having any questions or are we fine? Any questions or any doubts? Because then we are going to be moving to a very important part and we are going to be discussing the parameters. Is there anyone who is typing in some answer? If that's the case, just mention T in the chat, or you can unmute and speak in the class. It looks difficult to me. Okay, Seema, get it. I could wait. What is the difficult part, Nishant, here in the speaking? Was it the first part, second part, or the third part? Third part, I could tell you actually, it is the third difficult part of the speaking, because you're not talking about your personal life and you're talking about something really general in nature. Definitely it is difficult. And also the test has been designed in that way on. So as the test progresses, it gets difficult. So the first part is going to be easy. Second part would be comparatively difficult. And the last part of the speaking would be actually difficult. Okay. This is how they have designed the test. She speaks so much. You have to, because you get only 11 to 15 minutes, right? How else the examiner would know how well you are with the language. Okay. In case, let's say you give these kinds of answers only the way she is giving answers and you're not elaborating much on that, your score would go down to 7 or 7.5. The same candidate would score 7 or 7.5 just because the person refused to speak much on the topics that were being discussed in the session. Okay. If you try to limit your answers and you're not giving away much to the examiner, the same candidate would also score 7 or 7.5 just because of that only, because the examiner would not get sufficient content to judge you. Okay. If we are not able to get the idea about the topic, what will we do? Okay, let's discuss that scenario. First of all, Seema, now you are aware of all the three parts of the speaking, where you can think that scenario is going to happen on the first part, second part, or the third part. I would like to have this answer. Where do you think possibly it can happen that you get a topic where you would not have any idea? What part of the speaking can have that kind of answer or the question? Third. I agree with you on that. Yes, third part of the speaking could be such where you might not have some idea about that. Arjuman, we will discuss about that. So third part, it may happen. Okay, one thing is always, I am just going to be mentioning it verbally right now because you keep on asking me the same question, because this question also was there in one of the, tomorrow, when we were discussing that, it was in one of the questions that you had asked yesterday as well. So first of all, your IQ level is not being checked. Okay. Now, again, is there anyone who can give me some example? Let's say this is the question if it comes on the third part of speaking and I can't really answer that question. Is there any question that comes to your mind specifically, or was there any question in the video that you saw that you could think of and you think you would not be having much idea about that? Commercial aspect, I did not get the question clearly. If I get happens, you said. It is, yes, Nishant, you can always ask the examiner to repeat the question. Obviously, it should not be happening quite frequently. Once or twice, if it is happening, you can ask the person to repeat the question. You can even ask the examiner to rephrase a word in case you don't understand something. Okay. It is absolutely all right to ask the examiner to do that. Okay. Yes, Arjuman, we will discuss that. If we are not able to get the idea about the topic, what we will do? Same. So first of all, as I mentioned, the examiner is not going to be checking your IQ. In that case, you can say that this is something that I have never really thought of. Let's say the examiner is asking you a question that is, why do people nowadays don't read much? Though the topic is quite easy, right? Let's say I'm someone who is getting confused I can simply say that this is something I have never really paid attention to because I myself don't read a lot. But I think there could be lots of reasons, maybe technology is one of those reasons, and they just want to use mobile phones and they just want to explore the internet using their laptop. These could be some of the potential reasons. Other than that, I don't know much about it. As I mentioned, this is also one of the things that I personally don't show much interest in. Now, what happened? You answered the question. Now, examiner is going to be checking your language ability only, okay? Not your IQ. Usually these kinds of questions will not be there, which would demand certain sort of, like, the question she was asked on the third part was like, do you think most of festivals are being commercialized, or people pay attention to the advertisements when they are buying something, or maybe a gift itself, right? So your answer could be anything. Let's say, consider the same scenario. Let's say your friend is asking you that question. How would you respond to your friend in your native language and try to respond in the same way to the examiner? This is one of the other ways you can handle that sort of question in case it happens. But I've already mentioned it doesn't happen, okay? You would not be asked anything that would require a certain sort of knowledge, okay? It would not be the case, okay? Now, let's start with the discussion of these parameters. These parameters would allow you to assess your speaking as well, where you are standing in the language, what your weaknesses are, whether you need to work on the grammar part, you need to work on the fluency, all those things, just by knowing them. Now, they may seem a little complicated because you're seeing on this particular, so seeing all these parameters on this particular chart. I would try to make it as easy for you to understand as possible. Okay. Shall we start now then? Are we ready for it? Let's start there. So let's start. First is fluency and coherence. Second is lexical resource. Third is grammatical range and accuracy. And third one is pronunciation. Now let's start, and we are going to be discussing all of these one by one, okay, so that we can understand them well. So first of all, we discussed that yesterday. I would mention, okay, fluency and coherence. First, let's understand at a band 9, 8, or a 7, right? What happens? First of all, on the when you want to score a 9 band, you need to have this part that speaks fluently, rare repetition, self-correction, which means you're rarely correcting yourself and rarely repeating something. When we say repetition, we are not talking about vocabulary. Remember the children part, we are not talking about that kind of repetition. I would mention that what we are talking about. Any hesitation is content related rather than to find words or grammar. Speaks coherently with full appropriate cohesive features, develops topics fully and appropriately. So these are at a band 9. Speaks fluently, only occasional repetition, self-correction. Now occasional, here it was rare. Okay, occasional repetition, then self-correction, hesitation. All those things are same only. Okay, develops topic coherently and appropriately. You can see here as well. At a 7 band, what happens? Speaks at length without noticeable effort or loss of coherence. May demonstrate language-related hesitation at times or some repetition or self-correction. Uses a range of connectives, discourse markers with some flexibility. These are all things we need to look at in order to just be good at fluency and coherence. First of all, fluency and coherence would fetch you 25% of your speaking score. Okay. Now, before I go ahead, we will start discussing that in a very, I would say, easy words. So we would discuss everything in all these easy words only. Ankit has raised his hand. Are you having a question, Ankit? Please, you can unmute and speak.
Kindly let us know which type of repetition should be avoided during speaking.
Yeah, we will discuss that. I'm going to be discussing soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure. So let's start. So first thing first, let's talk about fluency and coherence. So fluency and coherence has both has two parts in that. One is fluency, other one is coherence. Now, what is fluency? Not showing unnecessary pauses. Okay, pauses should not be there. Unnecessary, I'm saying. Necessary pauses are important. For example, a pause that shows that you have those would be counted as unnecessary pauses. Even hesitations and interjections. Now, hesitations and interjections are going to be when we say in our speaking. Okay. Sometimes they could be really swear. Okay. They would be impacting your speaking a lot. Now, here, when we say that you need to maintain continuity in your speech, which means that without pauses and without hesitations and interjections, you need to maintain continuity in your speech. Okay. That continuity means that you're not stopping unnecessarily, you're not saying unnecessarily, and there is continuity in the speech. You're speaking continuously. Now, the other thing for the fluency part, you need to always keep in mind, that is avoid speaking at a higher pace. Sometimes we directly relate fluency to speed. We think that if I speak at a higher pace, I'm doing great with the fluency part. But that is absolutely wrong notion. Okay. You are not supposed to be speaking at a higher pace. Similarly, you should also not be very slower in your pace when you are speaking. You need to have a neutral pace of speaking. It is neither very fast and it is also not very slow that the examiner can't really follow. Okay. If you maintain that you are not showing pauses, interjections, or hesitations in your speaking and you're maintaining continuity, you're doing great with your fluency. Similarly, your speed is not fast and it is also not very slow. You are something in between, a moderate speak or pace of speaking. Your speed of speaking is quite moderate. Okay. Neither fast nor very slow. If you maintain that, you're doing well with your fluency. Before we go ahead, first let's talk about number of words per minute. So Ankit, I can't really say that because this is possible when we are talking about writing, because in the speaking, it's practically impossible for us to count that, right? Even I don't know how many number of words I'm speaking right now. So this is practically impossible to mention that. You are try to record yourself and listen to yourself, because what happens, we all have a certain image of ourselves that we imagine in our head. Okay, when I speak, I sound like this, right? We always have that image in our head that this is how my imaginary version speaks, looks, sounds when I speak. Try to record yourself and listen to yourself. Like, am I doing the right job when it comes to the speed part, when I'm listening back to myself, the audio version or the recorded version of myself? If you are satisfied as a listener with your speech, with the speed that you're listening, you're fine with your fluency. I mean, the speed of fluency. Okay. That is the one thing you can do, but I don't have specific number of words that I can mention about speaking in a minute or so. That's practically impossible. Okay, so the speed does not matter, just the neutral pace of speaking. I am an introvert, I feel difficult to speak. And a solution, take mocks. Nishant, first of all, try to speak in the class right now. For example, this is a great tool and I'm going to be mentioning it to all the people in the class right now. Try to speak. For example, Ankit just unmuted and just spoke and asked his doubt, right? When you think that you're hesitant and you think that you are someone who is not very comfortable, this is how you open up. This is how you start opening up. Okay, this is a great platform for you. Everyone here is a learner. Everyone here is a learner only. Okay, I am teacher and all of you are learners only. Whether you're working, you are a housewife, you are someone who is really old, someone really young, it doesn't matter at all. Okay, this is the platform, this is your class, you are supposed to be speaking. So my advice would be, if you want to come out of your comfort zone, start asking your doubts in the in the session. No matter how small that doubt is, just try to come forward and speak in the class. Trust me, do it once or twice, your confidence would be boosting so much. Just with once or this kind of attempt if you do it just once or twice. Okay. Second is definitely there are going to be mocks. Okay. During those mocks, you would be having an interaction with an examiner, like a tutor here. That would also help you come out of that comfort zone. Just one English evaluator app has given me review too slow speed. My speed is. This is definitely possible that whatever you're saying, because only an app can do it. Because only an app or an AI app can tell you how many words you're speaking. Okay. So, but again, Ankit, that is not the way you would be judging. Okay. Take a speaking mock and you can ask the tutor whether your pace of the speaking is slow or not. Okay. Do not decide it on the basis of the feedback that you have received from certain AI app. Okay, don't look at that. So this is what you need to focus on. Sometimes your fluency could be problematic because of, maybe you are not fine with the grammar part. You are structuring sentences in your mind and then you're speaking them. So that pause would be visible in your speak. Sometimes you're just hesitant because you're not confident enough and you're feeling a little anxious when you're speaking. Those could be some psychological reasons, and those are psychological barriers in the communication. Okay. So you need to identify what is your reason that you're stopping and you're saying in your speech. According to that, you need to work on that specific area. Then it would be all right. Okay. It takes some time. I would not say it happens just because I said so. It happens with practice and after being conscious. Okay. Now let's see what is self-correction. Now self-correction is that you have made a mistake, or now mistake can be, let's say, a grammatical mistake. And then you noticed it and corrected yourself. That is called self-correction. Okay. Let's say my question is that, my question is saying that, do you decorate your house yourself? And I would say, of course, sometimes I am in a mood where I want to decorate my room because it just enhances my mood when my room looked great. No, when my room looks great. So this was the error that I made. I just said looked. I was supposed to be saying looks great when my room looks great. And I noticed my error, then I corrected myself. What happened? It is called self-correction. Nobody else pointed out that error to me. I picked my error myself and then I corrected myself. That is called self-correction. If it happens a lot in the speaking, if it is happening rarely, you can even then get a band 9. However, if it is happening occasionally, even then you can get a band 8. And then you can see that if you go down and then your score would be like this. Okay. Again, anything done excessively and if it is done frequently, only then your score drastically get impacted. Otherwise, your score would be fine in the speaking. Okay. Self-correction is that. Now, what is self-repetition? Self-repetition is you repeat certain words or phrases that you have already mentioned in the previous sentence. Some candidates, when it is quite rare, what happens? Some candidates repeat the last word from the previous sentence before starting a new sentence. Okay. Before you even start a new sentence, what would happen? You would first repeat the last word that was there in the previous sentence. For example, let's say I take the same question. Do you like decorating your house? I would not say house. I really like decorating my room. My room, it is beautiful. It has a window and the window, I would say I like decorating it with beautiful curtains. And recently I have just bought this. Now, what am I doing? I'm repeating every word that was there in the previous sentence at the end, right? That is called self-repetition, that you keep repeating yourself. Now, this was one case. Other case could be, let's say, of course, I like decorating my room. I like decorating my room because it enhances my mood. Now, what am I doing? I am again repeating myself, okay? Sometimes we get stuck at just one sentence and we would keep on repeating that sentence only because we don't know how to proceed ahead with the speaking. That is called self-repetition. Again, it could be really severe in some students, okay? Next is content-related hesitation, and you can say this is acceptable. They are saying that any hesitation is content related rather than to find words or grammar. So if you're hesitating, you're saying thinking, and it is like, you don't know how to proceed with the next sentence. That is because you're not sure about the content, okay? Here, if you are unsure about the content, you need to add in your answer. And because of that, you show hesitation. Okay. Because of that, only you're showing some hesitation in the speaking. Now, let's take another example that I have been asked a certain question that I'm not sure of. Let's take example of barbecues, because this was one of the topics I used to see a lot of students getting stuck at. So let's talk about the examiner is asking me, do you like barbecue? And I would, let's say I am not sure of that particular topic. And I would say that, this is an interesting topic because this is something, or this is the kind of cooking that is not as commonly done in India, though I have heard about it a lot and it is quite popular in other countries. In India, mostly we have to go out to a certain restaurant and then we enjoy that food. Otherwise, we are not doing much with that food. So my liking for this food is not much. What happened? I did not have much content about it. Otherwise, I would have started my answer, yes, of course, I like this food a lot, right? Then I would have mentioned the reason for that. Here, since I was not having much content, I started talking about my country, right? Because of that, here I could not show hesitations, to be honest, but hesitations would be like, you're not sure about the next sentence that you would say. You would be say, okay, and because of that, I would say that I'm not sure about this topic, right? So I showed some a bit, not a lot, okay? Because I did not know what content to add in the answer because I did not have that experience with me. Are you getting what is content related hesitation? Which means your English is fine, your grammar is fine, your vocabulary is fine. It's just that you're not sure about the topic. And because of that, you might show in your speaking. Okay. Are we fine with that? Content related hesitation, everyone? Anyone who is there anyone who is having any questions? I'll wait. You can type in your doubt. Sure. Can we directly say to the examiner, I don't have content? Okay. No, Arjuman, I would not suggest that. You need to give English to the examiner, and it doesn't matter how you do that. Okay. So don't do that. I would not say that directly. Say, okay, I don't know about this topic. This is the worst way of handling the communication. You can simply say that this is an interesting topic, and I personally haven't really experienced it much because this kind of cooking is not as popular in my country. I have seen it in movies, and I've also seen it in rows of restaurants, and I've also tasted this food. Other than that, I haven't really experienced it much. So I don't think I can speak much about it, right? Say something related to the topic, okay, rather than saying that, no, I don't know anything about that. That's not how we will be proceeding with that, okay? Anyone else who's having any questions? And again, you know that you can also speak in the class. You can unmute and speak in the class. But we have to speak. Okay, what was the question? You have to speak for 2 minutes, even if you don't have anything to say. So we can't speak much about it, as you are saying right now. So we can't carry on right relation. We will, don't worry, RR. We are going to be discussing about it when we are going to be doing the second part of speaking. So tomorrow or maybe today onwards only, I don't think it is possible today. Tomorrow we are going to be sharing strategies for the part 1 of speaking. And if we got time, tomorrow onwards only, we would start with the second part. I agree with that. Second part can be trickier to handle. And this is where you are the only one speaking, which means there is no contribution from examiner's end to the communication. So of course, I agree with that. And I would tell you, how would you be going about that?
Hello,
Yes, please go ahead, Seema.
I have a question.
Mhm.
In the self-correction part, suppose we notice our mistake, and should we proceed without correcting it? Will it be okay?
Occasionally, it is fine. I would say correct yourself. Okay. Correct yourself at the spot in case you're noticing that you have made certain errors. You can see that speaks fluently, only occasional self-repetition and self-correction. Okay. Occasionally, you are allowed even at a band 8. Okay. So I would say yes, if it is happening occasionally, try to correct yourself. There is no harm in that.
Okay.
Anyone else who's having any questions? Okay, let's go ahead with the next part, and we are going to be talking about language related hesitation. Now, what is language related hesitation? Is grammatical mistake are counted? Yes, Janvi, those are counted, and we will discuss about them in detail. Okay, you can see third parameter is grammatical range and accuracy only. Okay, we will discuss about that, and we will discuss how the examiner is going to be looking at your mistakes, because we have this wrong perception about grammar, that grammar is everything in the speaking. Grammar is going to be fetching you also 25% of your speaking score only. The rest of the communication is fluency, coherence, your lexical source, your pronunciation. Okay. All those parts are also the contributory factors here. Okay. Now let's talk about language related hesitations. Okay, guys, you can leave your discussion. Okay, don't worry about that, Arjuman. 7 band is not something that a very difficult task to do. I'm discussing all the things. We will discuss those strategies as well. And there are going to be speaking marks as well. Don't worry about that. If you practice enough, there is nothing that you can't achieve. Okay, that's all right. Now, language related hesitation is going to be that hesitation because of the grammar, or because you are unsure about the sentence or the grammar part, or cannot think of a word when you make that. Sometimes you show longer pauses as well because of that only. You want to say something. Let's say I take, let's talk about flowers. Do you like flowers? I really love flowers, and the beauty of flowers is something that immediately makes me feel relaxed. And that is the reason that I always spend my evenings in the garden that is near to my home. There are so many flowers. They have really, they are very colorful. So I wanted to say they have vibrant colors. Somehow vibrant did not come to me when I needed that. So what would happen? It would impact my lexical source. Again, sorry, the fluency part as well as the lexical source. Okay. So now again, it did not happen. It doesn't happen just with the one word only. If it happens frequently, only then it happens. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be back. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Yeah, it was an important task and I had to just do that. Yeah, so we were talking about the language related hesitation. This hesitation comes, those all these things are going to be there. Some pauses are going to be there just because you are not sure of the words that you want to use, and somehow you can't really construct the sentence because you're not aware of some grammatical rules. Okay. And this would impact your scores in the fluency part. Are we sure about the fluency? Because this is all the fluency is all about. Because this was one of the most important topics, I wanted to discuss it in depth because the rest of the parts would not be having so much details here. Are we having any question about the fluency part? First, not showing pauses and also not showing those hesitations and interjections, maintaining a neutral pace of speaking where you're not speaking very fast and also you're not very speaking quite slow. Self-correction, you're not constantly correcting yourselves. You are making certain errors, then you're correcting yourself. It is not happening quite frequently. Repetition, you're not repeating all the words and the sentences that you have already mentioned. Somehow you're not sure of them and you're repeating yourself. Okay. Content related hesitation, as I've mentioned that you hesitate, just you show those and pauses just because you're not sure of the content that you want to add in the speaking or in a question. Okay. And then language related because of the grammar and the words that you want to use in a certain questions answer. Okay. Now let's talk about the lexical source. Lexical source is the other part of the speaking. If you see here, they're saying uses vocabulary with full flexibility, precision in all topics, idiomatic language naturally and accurately, wide vocabulary resources readily and flexibly, again, precise meaning, less common and idiomatic vocabulary, then occasional inaccuracies, paraphrase effectively as required. Again, vocabulary sources, and you have variety of topics. You can easily discuss them because you have sufficient vocabulary for that. Less common and idiomatic vocabulary. And then you have awareness of style, collocation, right? Then paraphrasing. So couple of things only in this part. Let's discuss about them. Before we go ahead with that, let's talk about coherence, one of the parts that I forgot to discuss. So this has coherence as well. Let's quickly discuss that first before that part. Now, coherence is going to be logically sequence the information in your answer. Whatever answer you're giving, it is logically, coherently mentioned. Let's say a coherent response would be, let me take, let's say this is the question here. Often lose things. That's the question. Now I would say, yes, it happens quite frequently with me because my mind is often occupied with multiple tasks at a time. Therefore, I might not pay as or much heed to a lot of things around me. So you can also add an example. Last week only, I was at a store when I somehow dropped my house key. Fortunately, a passerby or one of the passerby noticed it and handed it over to me after picking it up. Right? So now we have given a very coherent answer here, right? Now in this answer, what is happening? That we said that first we answered the question. That I said, okay, yes, it does happen to me quite frequently, because the question is saying, do you often lose things, right? I said, yes, it happens to me a lot. Then I gave reason for that. I said, yes, it happens because often, it happens that I have lots of things on my mind. And that's the reason I would not pay as much attention to the things around me as as much attention as possible to the things around me. And then I added an example that I almost lost my key when I was at a store. And fortunately, there was this person who handed it over to me once he noticed that I have dropped it, right? So now what happened? This is a coherent response. Your answer, then it was followed by the proper explanation, then an example for that, right? This is called a coherent response. A coherent response would be where there is a logical sequence to the information, right? Now I'll try to make it incoherent response. We would say that, do you often lose things? I would say, yes, last week I was at the supermarket and then suddenly I dropped my keys. And there was this one person who told me that I had, somehow dropped my key and I was able to pick it up. So sometimes it happens that I lose things around me or something. So what I did, I focused first on the example rather than answering the question, right? First, I should answer the question. It should have explanation. Then example is given to strengthen your answer. That would be a coherent response, not you're starting an example in the beginning on. Okay, that is called a coherent response. Example is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. Definitely not. Okay, you have to just mention the proper reason for your answer. You had seen that video. She was not constantly giving examples. Examples are a good way to add more content to your answer. Okay, but otherwise it's not necessary. Okay, now let's talk about the discourse markers. They are also going to be helping you in connectivity, because you need to always connect to your answers. You can say connectivity, right? Discourse markers, and discourse markers are always in fact, actually, well, definitely, obviously, as a matter of fact, in fact, right? All those words are going to be helping you connect the information, and those are going to be discourse markers, okay? Now let's talk about the lexical source. Lexical source is going to be basically for vocabulary, okay, the vocabulary part. Now in this part, you would need some synonyms. You would need synonyms if you are explaining some things. Synonyms are needed to paraphrase the question. You can see paraphrase effectively, right? So paraphrasing the question is important here. As soon as a question is asked to you, need to paraphrase that question. Do you like flowers? I love flowers, right? I'm really fond of them. This is called paraphrasing. Let me write that. Do you like flowers? And I would say that I love flowers. Or I would say that I am really fond of them, right? Or I can say I'm quite into flowers, right? That's how you can answer the question, by paraphrasing the detail. That's one way, because you need synonyms for that. Now, one more thing I would mention, that you need to have some precision in vocabulary. They're saying precise. When they're saying that, they are saying that topic specific vocabulary. Now I would show you an example as well. You could see this particular example here, and it is saying that, let's say the question is asking, what food or what dish you like eating, right? Now, let's say this is left-hand job, right? It's a good one. And you can just go to Google Classroom. There is a stream. If you would be going down, you would be seeing PDF files over there, lots of them. You can also find one for the idioms, okay? Yes, Sarita, this PDF is going to be there. Of course, it is going to be. Is there any source for learning? Of course, Janavi, if you just go to Google Classroom, there is only one PDF over there. I would also share one PDF, okay? Because what I feel is that, I think it is easy. I would write it here only, easy to use idioms related to feelings, or you could say emotions. Okay. And I would also share one file with you all, which would give you that list of idioms. I'm going to be sharing it in the chat right now so that I don't forget it. So let me just share it. So in here, because any cue card you get, right, now where to use idioms. If I am to mention that it is quite easy to use them in the cue card only. Why is that? Because this is the only part where you get 1 minute to prepare for the topic. And you can use that 1 minute to maybe just plan that where I would be using the idiom. And you can actually use it in the beginning of the topic itself. Okay, in the beginning of the topic, when you start speaking on the topic in the first couple of sentences, you can use an idiomatic expression. First of all, it would be completely right because you had 1 minute and you had already thought of it, right? So there are chances that you would not go with the use of an idiom in case you do it in the beginning of the cue card only. Otherwise, in the first and the second part, you can also use idioms over there. However, there you need to answer the questions almost immediately, which means you would not be getting time. Okay. That is my suggestion. Again, you should practice and you would know that where you can use them. Okay. For example, let's say if you miss certain opportunity, what idiom we can use? There is one that is really popular, miss the boat, right? I missed the boat. Quite easy to use, right? Try using them. Collocations. Now, collocations are usually set of words that go together. And in case you try to separate them, then there would be, that word would not make the sense that you want it to make. Let me again give you an example. I would mention one collocation that is wrong or right. You would be telling me. I would mention one collocation. Whether it is wrong or right, you would tell me. I would say this one. I always give this example, but I just want to check. I say do crime. Am I doing the right job here? Is it all right if I say that? No, no, no. Yes, we say commit crime. If I say that, sorry, if I say that, heavy smell, is it right? Am I doing the right job here? Heavy smell, the heavy smell of the rain. The heavy smell of the perfume, strong smell, right? That would be the right collocation. So we have clubbed certain words together and we need to make sure we are using the right collocations. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to use collocations, okay? You are already using collocations. You just need to make sure that you're using the right ones, okay? Are we fine with the collocations? Are we aware of the collocations? And this is all lexical sources. Using synonyms to paraphrase the question, using certain words that are specific related to the topic that is being discussed only. Okay, that is topic specific vocabulary. Collocations, you are already using, you're clubbing certain words together, but you are to make sure that you're using the right collocations. Okay, that's all the lexical source part is. Okay. Again, do not unnecessarily repeat lots of words. And we are not talking about those nouns. Okay. For example, children, it's a noun only. Okay. That's all right. Sometimes you use them. When we repeat certain words again and again, I was really happy. My friends were very happy. Happy, happy, happy. It is an adjective. I'm repeating that word. Then your lexical source would be getting impacted. Okay. Nouns don't impact your speaking as much because they are the names of certain things, and nouns would not have synonym. Children hardly have any synonym. Kids definitely is a synonym, but it would not be needed as much. Okay. So now let's move to the next part, that is grammatical range and accuracy. Now, grammatical range and accuracy has two parts. One is range and the other part is accuracy. Let's understand that. First, it is saying that use a full range of structures naturally and appropriately, produces consistently accurate structures apart from slips. Wide range of structures, again, the same thing here, produces majority of error-free sentences, occasional inappropriacies. Then they are saying that uses range of complex structures, then frequently produces error-free sentences, right? Now, again, they're just talking about two things. One is accuracy. Now, what is range and what is accuracy? Let's discuss about that. Range is going to be using various sentence structure. I would also mention how the examiner judges your language, okay? The grammar part, okay? Various sentence structures. When we say various sentence structures, we have compound, we have complex, we have conditional sentences, we have passive tenses, we have, because we are using simple tenses already, right? So we don't need to write them. And then we have relative clauses. All these, if you use them, you are going to be getting higher score in the range that you're offering to the examiner. Now, what is accuracy? What does accuracy mean, everyone? Do we know what is accuracy as a word? What does accuracy mean as a word? Correct. Right. Perfection, grammatical correction, exact, to the point. To the point. Those who are saying to the point, no. Exactness, no. Exactness is preciseness. Remember that we did in vocabulary part. Precision in vocabulary, that you're being really precise with the details. Here you need to talk about right. Right. It means right. If you are saying something right, if I'm using or making a sentence that is having no errors, that is called accuracy, right? Okay, correct. Okay. Precision is a different word. Precision is that you're being really specific about certain thing. Precision in vocabulary. For example, I did not say pasta. I like pasta. I said I like white pasta. That is precision in vocabulary, that I tried being as precise with the details as possible, right? Accuracy is right, correctness. Okay. Now it means that the majority of the sentences should be correct. Okay. Now, which means that they're allowing you to make errors. It's okay if you make some grammatical errors with the subject-verb agreement. Sometimes the tenses are mixing. Occasionally, if you're doing that, even then you are fine with the errors. Okay. If you're doing it frequently, only then your score would be coming down drastically because of grammatical range and accuracy. Otherwise, it would not impact your score much. Now, the examiner, how the examiner judges you, the person does not look at your errors, the person does not look at, okay, now he has made this mistake, now she used a past tense, she was supposed to be using a present tense here. The examiner does not do that. The examiner would be looking at, okay, now the person has used a complex sentence, now she has made a passive tense. This is how the examiner judges you. The person goes after the positive parts of the speaking and the grammar part of your speaking. The person doesn't go after your mistakes, okay? Which means the examiner is always cooperative with you, okay? The person's intentions are always to support you and be in that communication, okay? Do not think that the person's sole purpose is to just give you a lower band score. That is not how it happens. The person notices the positive parts in your speaking, even in the grammar part, okay? So are we sure about the grammar? Are we having any question about it? Then obviously your grammar should be correct. Okay, whatever grammar you're using, it is correct. And that may include articles. What are articles, everyone? Clearly, you can mention that quickly. What are articles? A and the. These kinds of errors are also paid attention to, especially when your score starts going up more than 7 band. Let's say the examiner has determined that you are someone who can easily fetch a 7 band. The examiner knows that. Now the person would want to check that whether you can reach 7.5, 8 or 9 bands or not. In order to do that, they would now pay attention to the smaller part of your grammar as well, okay? Even sometimes they would use some vocabulary words in the questions, okay? It happens, it starts happening when you have already reached a 7 band, according to the examiner, okay? Then the difficulty level would be certain, that would determine what kind of score you will be getting. And they would be giving you these kind of traps at that time. So articles are to be paid attention to. in the speaking. They are important. Okay, now the last part is going to be pronunciation. Now let's understand what is pronunciation. You can see that uses a full range of pronunciation features, precision and subtlety, sustains flexible use of features throughout, is effortless to understand. Then again, wide range of pronunciation features, sustains flexible use of features. Then they say easy to understand throughout. L1 accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. Now we will discuss what is L1 accent here as well. Before that, first of all, understand the last point. You see, effortless to understand. Now, what does it mean, effortless to understand? Which means you are pronouncing each and every word clear enough for the examiner to understand. Okay, that your pronunciation is clear. You don't need to check your accent. You can see throughout the chart here, you did not read anything about accent. This is the only part where you're reading about the accent part, and I would tell you what is that part. Okay, it has nothing to do with changing your accent and trying to, maybe pronounce the way Britishers speak, the way English people speak. You don't need to do that at all. Okay, you don't need to change your accent. You can be just the way you are speaking. We have a little thick accent and we need to accept that part. This is completely all right. And this is also not there. All the examiner needs is that you are clear enough so the person can understand each and every word that you're saying. Okay, because understand, right? The examiner is from another country and you have different accent. Now, if you try to pronounce certain words and they are not as clearly audible to the person, what would happen? The person would not be able to understand what you're saying. Then how even the person can actually give you a certain score, right? That is the reason you have to be clearly audible to the person. There should be clarity in the pronunciation. Okay. Yes, Janvi, you are having a question.
So is it okay to speak in the accent or in a plain accent? Is there any problem?
You need to just use the accent that you're already having.
Okay, ma'am. Fine.
Yes, no new accent is to be adopted. We don't need to adopt a new accent at all. Okay, don't do that. Okay, now this is one part. Now let's talk about this L1 accent. Okay, first I would want to know who all of you know about L1 accent. What is an L1 accent? Is there anyone who knows? Don't know? Okay. Now an L1 accent is going to be the accent. Yes, Sarita, very good. The accent from your mother tongue. Okay. Sometimes it is so strong that even though you're speaking English, it doesn't sound like you're speaking English. Okay. But even at a band 9, the person can understand you clearly. There is L1 accent, which can be seen in your speech, but it is not as strong. Okay, it is not as strong. Even then you can get a band 9. Okay, you understand that what it means? That the person needs clarity and your L1 accent should not be very strong. Okay, let's say this is the word, if say subtlety, and we try to say subtlety, something like that, right? We try to pronounce this B here. Then the pronunciation is wrong because this B is silent here. And if you try to speak in that word, you would be losing score for that because you're not pronouncing the word correctly at that time. Okay. Now, in order to be clear in your speech, just understand one thing. Obviously, it is practically impossible for people to mispronounce all the words, and it's okay to mispronounce certain words. Always treat English as your second language. It is not your first language, and we are already doing a great job at knowing this language. Okay, so you first feel proud of yourself. Even if you know a bit of English, you are already doing a great job. Okay, knowing and learning a new language or altogether a second language, it is not an easy task. Okay, so we are already doing great job, which means if you mispronounce certain words, it doesn't happen because you don't know how to pronounce the word. Sometimes there are certain distractions. For example, right now I'm taking this class. I am looking at the chat because I'm reading the questions. I'm trying to make you understand, right? Lots of things are happening. It could also happen with you also. You're a little anxious, and because of that, sometimes we do not give each word the time it needs for its clear pronunciation. If a word needs 2 seconds to pronounce, and if a word needs 3 seconds to pronounce, and if you try to speak that word just in 1 or 2 seconds, what would happen? Your pronunciation would not be right. Okay. So try to give each word the time it needs for its clear pronunciation. Okay. Try to give each word the time it needs for its clear pronunciation. And you would be completely all right with that. Okay. Your pronunciation would not be problematic at all. Okay. Now, one thing, let's talk about intonation. Intonation is one of the things I would like to mention that is really important. Now, what is intonation? Do we have anyone who doesn't know what is intonation? I will show you this article for that. Very important article. So your tone, the pitch of your speaking goes up and down. Okay, it goes up and down. When you want to emphasize on certain things, it goes up. When you want to make sure to tell the examiner this part is not as important, then your intonation goes down. Okay? Someone is on unmute. Please try to mute yourself. Sajid, are we having any questions? Okay, I think it is by mistake. I'm muting. In case you have a question, you can unmute and speak, but just raise your hand before that. Okay, now rising intonation. What is a rising intonation? Understand that it is saying that, are you French, right? Can you speak Thai, right? Would you, here it is saying that, would you recommend taking public transport in my country? So when you are going up with your tone a bit in your pitch of speaking, you're going up. Then you are showing rising intonation, okay? Then we also have falling intonation. For example, it is saying that, what is the capital city of your country, right? It is saying, where is the best seafood restaurant in your hometown? Now what happens? I went a bit down. And it happens also when we are finishing an answer. Let's say I'm answering a certain question. Okay, I'm answering a certain question. And I would just say that, okay, I really love flowers because they're really vibrant and they also smell great. And that is precisely the reason that I spend my evenings in a garden that is near to my home. Now, when I finished my answer, I said near to my home. So it was an indication that falling tone or falling pitch was an indication for the examiner to know that I have ended my answer. I don't need to my answer, that's all, right? I don't need to say that. That falling intonation would tell the examiner I'm done with my answer. Sometimes your intonation can be mixed as well. It goes up and down. For example, although the weather can be quite humid, it is still useful to do outdoor activities like hiking.